Welcome. This is Signal. Popsy by Stephen King. First published in 1993 by Viking Press in the short story compilation Nightmares and Dreamscapes. In the original story, the character of Sheridan is written as a male. Sheridan was cruising slowly down the length of the shopping mall when she saw the little kid push through the main doors under the lighted sign, which read, Cousin Town. It was a boy child, perhaps a big 3, and surely no more than 5. On his face was an expression to which Sheridan had become exquisitely attuned. He was trying not to cry, but soon would. Sheridan paused for a moment, feeling the familiar soft wave of self-disgust. Though every time she took a child, that feeling grew a little less urgent. The first time, she hadn't slept for a week. She kept thinking about that big, greasy Turk who called himself Mr. Wizard. Kept wondering what he did with the children. They go on a boat ride, Miss Sheridan, the Turk had told her. Only it came out, they go on a boat ride, Miss Sheridan. The Turk smiled, and if you know what's good for you, you won't ask any more about it. That smile said, and it said it loud and clear, without an accent. Sheridan didn't ask any more, but it didn't mean she hadn't kept wondering. Especially afterward, tossing and turning, wishing she had the whole thing to do over again so she could turn it around, so she could walk away from temptation. The second time had been almost as bad. The third time a little less. And by the fourth time, she had almost stopped wondering about what might be at the end of it for the little kids. Sheridan pulled her van into one of the handicapped parking spaces right in front of the mall. She had one of those special license plates the state gave to Crips. The plate was worth its weight in gold because it kept any mall security cop from getting suspicious, and those spaces were so convenient and almost always empty. She got out, walked toward the kid, who was looking around with increasing panic. Yes, Sheridan thought, he was 5 all right, maybe even 6, just very frail. In the harsh fluorescent glare thrown through the glass doors, the boy looked parchment white, not just scared, but perhaps physically ill. Sheridan reckoned it was just big fear, however. Sheridan usually recognized that look when she saw it, because she'd seen a lot of big fear in her own mirror over the last 1.5 years or so. The kid looked up hopefully at people passing around him, people going into the mall eager to buy, coming out laden with packages. The kid, dressed in tough-skin jeans and a Pittsburgh Penguins t-shirt, looked for help, looked for somebody to look at him, to see something was wrong, looked for somebody to ask the right question. You get separated from your dad, son. Here I am, Sheridan thought, approaching. I'll be your friend. She had almost reached the kid when she saw a mall rent-a-cop ambling slowly toward the doors. He was reaching in his pocket, probably for a pack of cigarettes. He would come out, see the boy, and there would go Sheridan's sure thing. Shit, she thought, but at least she wouldn't be seen talking to the kid when the cop came out. That would have been worse. Sheridan drew back a little and made a business of feeling in her own pockets, as if to make sure she still had her keys. Her glance flicked from the boy to the security cop and back to the boy. The boy had started to cry. Not all out bawling, not yet, but great big tears that looked pinkish in the reflected glow of the red Cousin Town sign as they tracked down his smooth cheeks. The girl at the information booth flagged down the cop and said something to him. She was pretty, dark-haired, about 25. As the cop leaned on his elbows, smiling at her, Sheridan thought they looked like cigarette ads you saw on the backs of magazines. They were making chit-chat. "What you doing after work? You want to go and get a drink at the new place?" And blah, blah, blah. Now she was also batting her eyes at him. How cute. Sheridan abruptly decided to take a chance. The kid's chest was hitching, and as soon as he started to bawl out loud, someone would notice him. Sheridan didn't like moving in with a cop less than 60 feet away, but if she didn't cover her markers at Mr. Reggie's within the next 24 hours, she thought a couple of very large, angry men would pay her a visit. She walked up to the kid. She bent over the little boy, hands on her legs just above the knees. The boy turned his pale, scared face up to Sheridan's. His eyes were as green as emeralds, their color accentuated by the light-reflecting tears that washed them. "You get separated from your dad, son?" Sheridan asked. "My Popsy," the kid said, wiping his eyes. I can't find my Popsy." Sheridan put a comforting arm around the boy's shoulders and drew him a little to the right, in the direction of the van. Then she looked back inside. The rent-a-cop had his face right down next to the information girl's now. At this point, there could be a stick-up going on at the bank and the cop wouldn't notice a thing. This was starting to look like a cinch. "I want my Popsy," the boy wept. "Sure you do. Of course you do," Sheridan said. "And we're gonna find him. Don't you worry." She drew him a little more to the right. The boy looked up at her, suddenly hopeful. Can you, lady?" "Sure," Sheridan said and grinned. "Finding lost Popsies. Well, you might say it's kind of a specialty of mine." It is?" The kid actually smiled a little. "It sure is," Sheridan said. "What was your Popsy wearing, son?" "He was wearing his suit," the boy said. "He almost always wears his suit. I only saw him once in jeans." "I bet it was a black suit," Sheridan said. The boy's eyes lit up. "You saw him? Where?" He started eagerly back towards the doors, tears forgotten, and Sheridan had to restrain herself from grabbing the pale-faced little brat right then and there. That type of thing was no good. Couldn't cause a scene, couldn't do anything people would remember later. Had to get him in the van. The van had sun-filter glass everywhere except in the windshield. She touched the boy on the arm. "I didn't see him inside, son. I saw him right over there." She pointed across the huge parking lot where the double yellow arches of McDonald's stood. "Why would Popsy go over there?" the boy asked, as if Sheridan had gone utterly mad. "I don't know," Sheridan said, her mind working fast. Popsy. Not Dad or Daddy, but Popsy. The kid had corrected her on it. Maybe Popsy meant Granddad. Sheridan decided, but I'm pretty sure that was him. Older guy, Black suit, white hair, green tie. Popsy had his blue tie on, the boy said. He knows I like it best. Yeah, it could have been blue, Sheridan said. Under these lights, you can tell. Come on, hop in the van. I'll run you over there to him. Are you sure it was Popsy? Because I don't know why he'd go to a place where they... Sheridan shrugged. Look, kid, if you're sure it wasn't him, maybe you better go look for him on your own. And she started away, heading back toward the van. The kid wasn't biting. She thought about going back, trying again, but it had already gone on too long. You kept observable contact to a minimum, or you were asking for 20 years in Hamilton Bay. She'd better go on to another mall. Wait! Lady! It was the kid, with panic in his voice. There was the light thud of running sneakers. Wait up! I told him I was thirsty. He must have thought he had to go way over there to get me a drink. Wait! Sheridan turned around, smiling. I wasn't really gonna leave you anyway, son. She led the boy to the van. She opened the door and smiled at the kid, who looked at her doubtfully, his green eyes swimming in that pallid little face. Step into my parlor, little buddy, Sheridan said, and produced a grin which looked almost entirely natural. It was really sort of creepy how good she'd gotten at this. The kid did, and although he didn't know it, he belonged to Bridget Sheridan the minute the passenger door swung shut. There was only one problem in her life. It wasn't men, and it wasn't booze. Sheridan's problem, her fatal flaw, you might even say, was cards. Any kind of cards, as long as it was the kind of game where wagers were allowed. She had lost jobs, credit cards, the home her mother had left her. She had never, at least so far, been in jail. But the first time she got in trouble with Mr. Reggie, she had thought jail would be a rest cure by comparison. She had gone a little crazy that night. It was better, she had found, when you lost right away. When you lost right away, you got discouraged, went home. When you won a little bit at first, you chased. Sheridan had chased that night and had ended up owing $17,000. She could hardly believe it. She kept telling herself in the car on the way home that she owed Mr. Reggie not $700, not $7,000, but $17,000. Every time she tried to think about it, she giggled and turned up the volume on the radio. But she wasn't giggling the next night when the two gorillas, the ones who could make sure her arms bent in all sorts of new and interesting ways if she didn't pay up, brought her to Mr. Reggie's office. I'll pay, Sheridan began babbling. I'll pay. Listen, it's no problem. A couple of days, a week at the most.
You bore me, Sheridan,
Mr. Reggie said.
If I give you a week, don't you think I know what you'll do? You'll tap a friend for a couple of $100, if you've got a friend left to tap. If you can't find a friend, you'll hit a liquor store, if you've got the guts. And don't you do, but anything is possible.
Mr. Reggie leaned forward, propped his chin on his hands, and smiled. He smelled of Ted Lapidus cologne.
And if you do come up with $200, what will you do with it?
Give it to you, Sheridan had babbled. By then she was very close to tears. I'll give it to you right away.
No, you won't, Mr. Reggie said. You'll take it to the track. and try to make it grow. What you'll give me is a bunch of shitty excuses. You're in over your head this time, my friend. Way over your head.
Sheridan could hold back the tears no longer. She began to blubber.
These guys could put you in the hospital for a long time,
Mr. Reggie said.
You would have a tube in each arm, and another one coming out of your nose.
Sheridan began to blubber louder.
I'll give you this much,
Mr. Reggie said, and pushed a folded sheet of paper across his desk to Sheridan.
You might get along with this guy. He calls himself Mr. Wizard. Now get out of here. I'm gonna have you back in here in a week, though. And I'll have your markers on this desk. Or I'm gonna have my friends tune up on you.
The Turk's real name was written on the folded sheet of paper. Sheridan went to see him and heard about the kids and the butt rides. Mr. Wizard also named a figure which was a fairish bit larger than the markers Mr. Reggie was holding. That was when Sheridan started cruising the malls. She pulled out of Cousintown Mall's main parking lot, then drove across the road and into the McDonald's in lane. The kid was sitting all the way forward on the passenger seat, hands on his knees, eyes agonizingly alert. Sheridan drove toward the building, swung wide to avoid the drive-through lane, and kept on going. "Why are you going around the back?" the kid asked. "You have to go around to the other doors," Sheridan said. "Keep your shirt on, kid. I think I saw him in there." Sublime relief washed over the kid's face, and for a moment Sheridan felt sorry for him. Hell, she wasn't a monster. But her markers had gotten a little deeper each time, and Mr. Reggie had no compunctions at all about letting her hang herself. It wasn't 17,000 this time. This time, it was 35 grand. She stopped in back of the trash compactor. Nobody parked back there. Good. There was an elasticized pouch on the side of the door for maps and things. Sheridan reached inside with her left hand and brought out a pair of blue steel handcuffs. The loop jaws were open. "Why are we stopping here, lady?" the kid asked. The fear was back in his voice, but the quality of it had changed. He suddenly realized maybe getting separated from good old Popsy in the mall wasn't the worst thing that could happen to him after all. "We're not really," Sheridan said easily. She had learned the second time she had done this that you don't want to underestimate even a 6-year-old. The second kid had kicked her in the stomach and damn near gotten away. "I just remembered I forgot to put my glasses on when I started driving. They're in the glasses case on the floor there. They slid over to your side. Hand them to me, would you?" The kid bent over to get the glasses case, which was empty. Sheridan leaned over and snapped one of the cuffs on the kid's reaching hand. And then the trouble started. Hadn't she just been thinking it was a bad mistake to underestimate even a 6-year-old? The brat fought like a Timberwolf pup, twisting with powerful muscularity Sheridan would not have credited had she not been experiencing it. He bucked and fought and lunged for the door, panting and uttering weird bird-like cries. He got the handle. The door swung open. Sheridan got the kid by the collar of his Penguins t-shirt and hauled him back in. She tried to clamp the other cuff on the special strut beside the passenger seat and missed. The kid bit her hand twice, bringing blood. God, his teeth were like razors. The pain went deep and sent a steely ache all the way up her arm. She punched the kid in the mouth. The kid fell back into the seat, dazed. Sheridan's blood on his lips and chin and dripping into the ribbed neck of the t-shirt. Sheridan locked the other cuff onto the strut and fell back into her own seat, sucking the back of her right hand. The pain was really bad. She pulled her hand away from her mouth and looked at it. 2 shallow, ragged tears, each maybe 2 inches long, ran towards her wrist from just above the knuckles. Still, she felt no urge to pop the kid again. No, she didn't blame the kid for fighting. She would have done the same. She would have to disinfect the wound as soon as she could, though. Might even have to get a shot. Still, she couldn't help but admire the kid's guts. She dropped the transmission into drive and pulled past the drive-thru window and back onto the road. She turned left. The Turk had a big house on the edge of the city. Sheridan would go there, 30 miles, maybe an hour. She passed a sign which read, "Thank you for shopping the beautiful Cousin Town Mall," turned left, and let the van creep up to 40 miles an hour. She fished a handkerchief out of her back pocket, folded it over the back of her right hand, and concentrated on following her headlights to the 40 grand the Turk had promised for a boy child. "You'll be sorry," the kid said. The kid was crying again, and his tears were still that odd pinkish cast, even though they were now well away from the bright lights of the mall. Sheridan wondered for the first time if the kid might have some sort of communicable disease. She supposed it was a little late to start worrying about such things, so she put it out of her mind. "When my Popsy finds you, you'll be sorry," the kid elaborated. "Yeah," Sheridan said. She turned off State Road 28 and onto an unmarked stretch of blacktop. There was a long, marshy area on the left. The kid pulled at the handcuffs and made a sobbing noise. "Quit it. Won't do you any good." Nevertheless, the kid pulled again. And this time, there was a groaning, protesting sound Sheridan didn't like at all. She looked around and was amazed to see that the metal strut on the side of the seat, a strut she had welded into place herself, was twisted out of shape. "Shit," she thought. "He's got teeth like razors, and now I find out he's as strong as an ox. If this is what he's like when he's sick, God forbid I should have grabbed him on a day when he was feeling well." She pulled over to the soft shoulder and said, "Stop it." "I won't!" The kid yanked on the handcuff again, and Sheridan saw the metal strut bend a little more. Christ, how could any kid do that? "It's panic," she answered herself. "That's how he can do it." But none of the others had been able to do it. And many of them had been a lot more terrified than this kid by this stage of the game. She opened the glove compartment at the center of the dash. She brought out a hypodermic needle. The Turk had given it to her and cautioned her not to use it unless she absolutely had to. Drugs, the Turk said, could damage the merchandise. "See this?" The kid gave the hypo a glance and nodded. "You want me to use it?" The kid shook his head at once. Strong or not, he had any kid's instant terror of the needle, Sheridan was happy to see. "That's very smart. It would put out your lights." She paused. The kid stared at her, lips trembling, cheeks papery with fear. "You stop yanking the cuff. I put away the needle. Deal?" "Deal," the kid whispered. "You promise?" "Yes." The kid lifted his lip, showing white teeth, One of them was spotted with Sheridan's blood.
You promise on your mother's name?
I never had a mother.
Shit,
Sheridan said, disgusted, and got the van rolling again. She moved a little faster now, not only because she was finally off the main road. The kid was a spook. Sheridan wanted to turn him over to the Turk, get her money, and split. My Popsy's really strong, lady. Yeah, Sheridan said, and thought, I bet he is, kid. Only guy in the old folks' home who can bench press, right? He'll find me. Uh-huh. He can smell me. Sheridan believed it. She could smell the kid. That fear had an odor, was something that she had learned on her previous expeditions. But this was unreal. The kid smelled like a mixture of sweat, mud, and slowly cooking battery acid. Sheridan was becoming more and more sure that something was seriously wrong with the kid. Sheridan cracked her window. On the left, the marsh went on and on. Broken slivers of moonlight glimmered in the stagnant water. Popsy can fly. Yeah, Sheridan said. After a couple of bottles of night train, I bet he flies like an eagle. Popsy, enough of the Popsy shit, kid. Okay? The kid shut up. 4 miles further on, the marsh on the left broadened into a wide, empty pond. Sheridan glanced towards the pond, a flat silver sheet in the moonlight. Then, the moonlight was gone, blotted out. Overhead, there was a flapping sound like big sheets on a clothesline. Popsy! Shut up. It was only a bird. But suddenly, she was spooked. Very spooked. She looked at the kid. The kid's lip was drawn back from his teeth again. His teeth were very white. Very big. No, not big. Big wasn't the right word. Long was the right word. Especially the two at the top, at each side. What did you call them? Canines. Stop. Her mind suddenly started to fly, as if she were on speed. I told him I was thirsty. Why would Popsy go to the place where they... Was he gonna say eat? He'll find me. Popsy can smell me. Popsy can fly. Something landed on the roof of the van with a heavy, clumsy thump. Popsy! The kid screamed again, and suddenly Sheridan could not see the road anymore. A huge, membranous wing covered the windshield from side to side. Popsy can fly. Sheridan screamed and jumped on the brake, hoping to tumble the thing off the roof. There was that groaning, throat-testing sound of metal under stress from her right again. This time, followed by a short, bitter snap. A moment later, the kid's fingers were clawing into her face, pulling open her cheek. She stole me, Popsy! The kid was screeching at the roof of the van in a bird-like voice. She stole me! She stole me! The bad woman stole me! Sheridan groped for the hypo and found it. Then a hand, more like a talon than a real hand, smashed through the side window and ripped the hypo from Sheridan's grasp, along with 2 of her fingers. A moment later, Popsy peeled the entire driver's side door out of its frame, the hinges now bright twists of meaningless metal. Sheridan saw a billowing cape, black on the outside, lined with red silk on the inside. And the creature's tie, it was blue all right, just as the boy had said. Popsy yanked Sheridan out of the car, talons sinking through her jacket and shirt and deep into the meat of her shoulders. Popsy's green eyes suddenly turned as red as blood roses.
We came to the mall because my grandson wanted some Ninja Turtle figures.
Popsy whispered.
The ones they show on TV. You should have left him alone.
Sheridan was shaken like a rag doll. She shrieked. She heard Popsy asking if the kid was still thirsty. Heard the kid saying yes, his throat was so dry. She saw Popsy's thumbnail for a second before it disappeared under her chin. Her throat was cut with that nail before she realized what was happening. And the last thing she saw were the kid, cupping his hands to catch the flow, the way Sheridan had cupped her hands under the backyard faucet for a drink on a hot summer day when she was a kid. And Popsy, stroking the boy's hair gently with grandfatherly love.